microphone. This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the wedge neighborhood right now.
I'd put like wax paper in front of the lights just to like diffuse it. It's something I looked up on YouTube.
Nice.
So
That's
everyone should know that this is me in good lighting. Okay, I've started recording.
Okay.
Which means that I'm good to announce that the show has started. This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm John Edwards, your host. Hey. And my co-host today, a last-minute addition, is Pine.
Hey.
Welcome.
Good. Thanks for having me, John.
Do you have any disclaimers to add about your other roles?
Sure. I am campaign manager for the Board of Estimate and Taxation race for my wonderful spouse, Krista Mosing. I wouldn't be campaign managing for her for any race larger than this one, but I think that we've got a good thing going. We just got the DFL endorsement and last week, but things are going really well with that.
I think you're underselling it. You're the only
citywide
endorsed campaign.
Yeah, it's true.
There's no mayoral endorsement. There's no park board at large endorsement.
Yeah,
but there's a citywide endorsement for the campaign you're managing.
Yes, we're very proud about that. I'm incredibly proud about that. Krista's just the best person for the job, and it's really apparent. Of the people who are running, like she's got that level of broad appeal that people are just like, yeah, I think she's the one for the job.
Incredibly smart, and I think a lot about how there's a couple of city council races that Krista could just like step in and be, my preferred candidate. I don't know if she could win necessarily.
Yeah,
hard to win, but I have a lot of Krista inspires a lot of confidence.
She does. And I'm so proud to be managing her campaign. It's taken a lot more time than I sort of expected it would, with a really, really down ballot race like this one. You wouldn't expect it to be a lot of work, but it actually is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And don't sell yourself short as campaign manager either, because like there's a lot of bad campaign managers out there. It's basically who you can find that can work for cheap. Is like probably super young, a student.
Yeah.
Just like willing to volunteer a lot of time. It's hard to find good people, which is why a lot of spouses and family members end up doing this work.
Yeah, it's you don't have especially at this kind of level, there's not a lot of resources available. So we're doing our best, and it's paying off. I'll tell you something that hasn't because this isn't going to go live for a little bit, but Krista just locked down the Asks Me endorsement.
Ooh.
They hadn't endorsed in the race yet, so
that's Krista's union, I assume.
No, she's not in. She's not in that union for her day job. She's in MMA. Middle Management Association.
Oh, geez, Middle Management Association.
But yeah, so she was able to, talk about a lot of union stuff, and got their endorsement just now, which is very exciting.
That is exciting. And just a little background on how we came to be here with Pine today is I had planned for Peggy Sue to be here. Peggy Sue is not the golden child everyone thinks she is. She canceled last minute. She screwed up her calendar.
Oof.
There she is, Miss
Northeast Minneapolis.
And so I brought out my rotary phone and I called Pine. And you know what Pine said? I recorded the call, actually. This is what Pine said.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
Did you hear that?
No,
How come you can never hear the sound effects?
I don't know. I don't
Okay,
know. I believe you when you say you played that clip, though.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
That's so weird. Other people can hear them, so I've confirmed that they do work sometimes. But we're gonna insert Lisa Goodman saying, "I've got time. I've got nothing else going on today."
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
That will be hilarious.
Yes.
And maybe we can bring it up. We can bring it up later in the show and pretend that's how I got Nikkor to come on.
Yes.
He's got nothing else going on.
Nothing
today.
else going on. I'm sure.
Conventions are over.
We're on break.
It's campaign lull. This is the part of the election year where people decide what they did wrong, what they need to change. Can they actually win?
Yeah.
Can we really do this? When are we going to start door knocking again?
Mm-hmm.
When will people start paying attention to the city election year, if ever? How do we get into apartment buildings?
Yeah. How do we manage all those things? What parts of our message do we need to change for the extremely high information voters that we had in the DFL conventions to the more broad, less high information voters in the general? It's an interesting time.
And how much do you think we can glean from the DFL convention results? The various endorsements, the non-endorsements. Is it? I mean, it's not necessarily what's going to happen in November, but does it give us any hints at what might happen? Are you reassured? Are you feeling?
So I mean, like for my campaign, I'm feeling pretty reassured. But it's the BET is a very special race, and things may differ between the BET and other races. So, like for all the other races, it's informative, but it's not authoritative.
I was reassured by City Council.
Yeah.
I know WCCO said it was a mixed bag and like counted up the people who were on the defund stage and said, well, 3 of them weren't endorsed, 3 of them were, but like I feel good about Steve Fletcher. Philippe Cunningham looks good. I don't know what's going on in Ward 5. That's weird, but
That is
the only truly like disappointing result, and I don't think this is necessarily what happens in November, was Jeremy Schrader coming in behind Emily Hofstede-Koski. That was the only like big, that's not good, but that could change.
Yeah, it's indicative, but it's not the final say. People, if you look back to 2017, there were endorsements and lack of endorsements that panned out and didn't pan out.
And also Ward 1 was a really good result, winning almost 80% against an incumbent, Elliot Payne.
Amazing.
Against Kevin Reich, and
knocked it out of the park.
Ward 9, I think, also having that seat flip from Alondra to Chavez could be potentially very, very meaningful about what kind of city council we have next term. Yeah,
and I think that was mostly driven by Alondra not running again, and then there was, living here in Ward 9, I could see that most of the other candidates, one of them was Mickey Moore, which we will not be discussing Mickey Moore any further. And the other contender who actually showed up to the ward forum to engage in the forum, the questions that people had submitted. There was Jason, who had done the homework and was prepared, and then the other person that showed up seemed like a nice guy that like I'd want to have a beer with, maybe watch some sports, see if I wanted to watch some football, but didn't have a whole lot of political experience.
So there's a lot of
but yeah, it was basically
forgettable candidates,
and then Rita dropped out due to the medical thing, so forgettable candidates, unmentionable candidates, and Jason. So I have a lot of faith that he'll be the right person for the seat.
And low quality conservative candidates is kind of a theme for me. That's what I see in Ward 3 with Rainville. I really see it in Ward 10. Not people who I see as particularly big threats. Because to win as a
Yeah.
conservative, you kind of have to like straddle the fence and convince people you're progressive. I'm not. And also, I don't see a lot of money backing some of these candidates at this point yet. So you have to inspire the money to get behind you.
Yeah. Have the I know that there were some financial filings due recently. Have those been published yet?
Campaign finance?
Yeah.
I think that's like end of July stuff, right?
Oh, okay.
You're the campaign manager. You should know. Have you filed?
So I am not the treasurer. That's the one thing that I'm not.
You're just totally disconnected from the money
Totally
stuff.
disconnected from it. I have work reasons to not be involved in. I have day job reasons to not be involved in any of the money stuff. So,
Okay, and it's why you can ethically appear as a co-host on this podcast, because you have completely
I don't
distanced
even
yourself.
know.
You don't know what's going on there. There's Nikkor.
Hello.
Hello, Nikkor. Welcome
Hi,
to
how's
the.
it going?
It's going pretty well.
I wasn't
we
sure
had-
if I was supposed to click allow audio playback, but
I think you were.
Okay.
I think that was the right move. You made the right decision.
Great.
We were just talking about confidence-inspiring candidates, and you clicked the right button. So,
Oh, that's great. That means so much.
and my co-host today is not Peggy Sue; it's Pine.
Oh, hi, Pine.
And Pine,
Hi,
just
Nick.
full disclosure, is the campaign manager for Krista for BET.
Oh, great, fantastic. I have not had the pleasure of meeting Krista, but I have read her stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to chat more offline.
Let me do the official Nikkor introduction.
Great.
Nikkor is a candidate for Ward 7 City Council in Minneapolis, running against entrenched, longtime incumbent Lisa Goodman, who has held that office since, I think she was elected in 1997. I think so, yeah.
24 years, so whatever that math is, I'm not good at that.
Yeah. And
That would check out.
so let's start with an easy one. What neighborhood do you live in? And tell me the story of how you came to live in that neighborhood. What brought you there?
I live in the downtown west neighborhood of Minneapolis in Ward 7, and I was looking for a home to buy. And I was like, I don't know if I actually want to live in a home because I don't really like mowing the lawn and like doing all this stuff. So then I started looking at condos. And there was a really great and affordable condo here in Center Village. And so I purchased that and have lived here since 2017.
Pine, are you familiar with Center Village?
Yeah. Center Village is the one that's spelled Centre. Is that
Yes,
right on the building?
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I love looking at that building.
Yeah.
It looks like it has affordable condos in it. I'm glad that you are living there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So why downtown? Why that neighborhood? What attracted you to the neighborhood aside from like not wanting to buy a single or not being able to afford a single family home in Kenwood, for example, and not wanting to mow the lawn?
I like living downtown. I like living near stuff. I like it that things are walkable. I like being able to walk in the skyways as well during the day when things are open. I like that some of my favorite bars are walking distance away. I like the hustle and bustle of downtown, and so that's those are some of the reasons why I like living here or why I chose to live here.
And how do you get around the city?
I bike. I am a biker. I also drive at times. But
Okay.
Oof.
yes,
We won't
and I
hold that
walk.
against you.
And I also walk.
What's your favorite bus?
My favorite bus? Ooh. I'm gonna say the 21 because I had a lot of memories on the 21.
I think we all have a lot of memories from the 21. Tell us a good 21 memory. Do you have a specific memory in mind?
I mean, I used to take the 21 when I would. So I was a student at the University of St. Thomas, and would take the bus down to Crystal Ray and teach guitar lessons every week. So I was a music major, by the way, in case you didn't know that. And so I majored in guitar. And so I would say like those are, it was fun to do those things. And then also like I often found that I was running late or I would miss the bus or the bus was running late. And so like I would have to like rush or I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it. I have to take a taxi. Things like that would
Right.
happen sometimes as
Right.
well. So both good and bad memories like that.
And so on the campaign trail in Ward 7, tell us about the big concerns. I'm always curious to hear what candidates are hearing from the people, because in a lot of ways you are the most in touch with what people are thinking right now. So tell us what Ward 7 is concerned about. Like, give us some top 3. Maybe there's a surprise
Yeah,
in
for
there.
sure. I think that like the rest of the city, the folks in Ward 7 are talking about public safety and concerned about public safety, both concerned about policing, but also concerned about crime and also concerned about how we are going to do those things or address those things. So public safety is, I think, a top concern for a lot of people. I think people are also concerned about housing. And so I do hear a lot about housing from people. I hear a lot about, how are we going to make sure we have enough affordable housing in the city? How are we going to make sure that everyone is housed? Things like that. And I would say another question or another concern that people have is, sort of like, how are we going to bounce back after the pandemic? How are we going to bring our economy back? Things like that.
And is there a particular issue where you started out the campaign talking about something a certain way or thinking a certain way about that issue, but after hearing from people, you were like, well, I need to go back and rethink this. Either I'm not talking about it the right way, or I don't have my position exactly where it should be based on where constituents are. Is there anything where you've had to like been surprised by where the community is and thought, well, I need to rethink the way I'm either talking or thinking about this?
Um, I would say generally, I feel like where I'm at in terms of like my values and my vision for what we want to accomplish, and like the policies and the approach that we want to take if elected, I think those are all very similar to how we started the campaign. I think maybe we're talking about things a little differently in terms of like, in terms of public safety or in terms of housing, but I wouldn't say it's very different. I wouldn't say it's very different from where we started. And I think that, if anything, a lot of people are resonating towards our message about some of these things that we're talking about.
Okay, we're going to talk about public safety more later, but
Sure.
for now, let's talk a little bit about Ward 7. It's, in my mind, I live in Ward 10, which is right next to Ward 7, and I think about Ward 7 a lot. It's two different places. You have the Lakes area neighborhoods to the west and southwest, and you've got the downtown portion, Loring Park, downtown where you live, Elliott Park, Stevens Square, a lot of neighborhoods that get forgotten and have lower turnout. And we just went through the DFL convention process, and Lisa Goodman was endorsed by a tiny amount over that margin. She did a little better than she did in 2017. I think she was not going to be caught off guard this time, so she probably worked a little harder. But if you're going to change that result in November, it's kind of about activating the people who live in the apartment buildings to the east of Hennepin Avenue, so you can counteract Lisa Goodman's strength to those neighborhoods to the west. So what is your secret plan to make sure you turn out your voters in November?
Yeah, our secret plan is to just, is to make sure that we're talking to everyone, and really knocking on like all of these apartments that are these multi-unit complexes that exist on, I guess you could say, like the downtown side, Loring Park, Stevens Square. But obviously we're still talking to people on the other side of Hennepin as well. We're not gonna ignore people, and that's not
Right.
that's not part of our strategy either. But it's number one is to make sure we're talking to everyone. Number two, it's to inspire people with our message that like we are living in a really critical time in Minneapolis, and you know, like this past year has been evidence of the fact that like the world is shifting, right? Like literally, you could feel the world shifting around you, and so we have an opportunity here to really make some real change and improve our city and think differently about how we do things. And so, like, really talking about the moment that we're in, about the opportunity that exists within public safety. I think people are really engaged and excited about what we can do with public safety, particularly inspiring people to connect with the charter with the charter amendment and those types of things. And I'll also add that, like, you know, with the people were really inspired by our message with the endorsement process in the DFL endorsement process, and you know, we didn't win, but we did a lot of good work. We turned, you know, we were top 4 in terms of turnout on our specific race, top 4 in the entire city for the number of people we actually turned out to caucus. And of course, in Ward 7, we had record turnout. You know, so like in 2017, I think there were maybe like 350 to 400 people who turned out to caucus. This year, there were 1,700 people that turned out to caucus. And so, like, you know, there were a lot of people that were excited by our message. There were also a lot of people that were excited by Lisa Goodman's message, or who were voting, you know, because of her. But that's not to say that, like, you know, it's obviously harder for our people who are newer to the process, who don't know what it even means to be a delegate, who don't even understand what a caucus or convention is, to participate in this process. They're like, oh, what? I have to like vote for someone else to vote to become this thing. And then, like, you know, it's just, there are multiple layers to helping people participate for the first time into the DFL endorsement process. And so I just want to add that, like, I am actually really proud of the work that we did, because we turned out a record number of people on our behalf. There were a lot of people who are inspired and excited by our message, particularly people who have never voted in a municipal election before, and people who were energized in the last 4 years with you know, our former president Donald Trump, who are like really into politics right now, who are really progressive, who really want to see change in our city. And so those are the folks that we have to make sure we reach. In addition to talking to people who maybe are not necessarily on our side, or are still, you know, still trying to figure out who to vote for. Like our job as candidates, and as, you know, I'm an organizer, so, and as organizers and movement builders, is to really help move people towards our vision for what we want for ourselves and our neighborhoods and our communities. And like, we don't do that by just turning out our base. Like, we do that by like having authentic, real conversations with people and like moving them through that in that way.
Pine, do you have a secret plan that you would like to share with Nick? Because you used to door knock in Ward 7.
Oh yeah, tell me about that.
You're the campaign manager of the only citywide endorsed campaign in Minneapolis. I assume you have a secret plan that you could give him.
Please.
So yeah, it's as you know, like I've been door knocking in Ward 7. I've been door knocking around the city. And it's always challenging to try to get into multi-unit places. It's simply more coordinated effort than it is to walk up and down a block of single family houses. It's simply harder. Like, you have to either, you know, go through the proper approval processes, or you simply find somebody who's just willing to let you and a friend in. But it's a more challenging, it's harder. And like, I wonder if you would, you know, like, how have you been handling that in the non-single family neighborhoods of Ward 7?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. So we have been door knocking. We were door knocking all throughout the caucuses. And so we have a list of apartments that we already know who will let us in, and who like are easy to get into. And we have a list of other ones who are a little harder. But you know, it is the law. If the candidate is there, they are required. And so we make sure that we tell them that it is the law. And we do have someone who's working to coordinate like the different apartments and figure out which apartments are really easy and things like that. And like, and also, you know, I think some of the smaller ones are a little harder too, because they're just, you know, they're smaller, they're owned by individuals or smaller landlords and things like that. So just a little bit
Yeah.
more difficult, but we, it's a part of what we have to. It's part of the hump that we have to get through. But the nice thing the nice thing about apartments. The nice thing about apartments is that like you can do like 100 or 200 doors in like one shift. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's so quick. It's easy.
Once you're in.
Once you're in. Yes, once you're in. It's and it's super fun. So
Yeah, once you're in, you get a lot of really good conversations with people. But like, for instance, I'm thinking of the place that I used to live in Elliott Park, was a like 24 unit place with
Yeah.
no on-site property management.
yeah,
So like those places are really hard to get into.
for sure.
Tell me about your strategy for those?
So partially like what you were saying, like sometimes you just gotta wait and like go in, like
Okay.
right, and then like
Yeah.
I mean, we have to get nimble, and we have to think creatively about. And if we know, I mean, we can pull a list of people we know list of people in each building, and so if we know people there as well, we have a lot of neighborhood
Yeah.
captains, and so like we can figure out who lives in which building, and like they can also let us in. So there are a lot of different creative ways to get in.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's easy. Definitely not saying it's easy.
Yeah.
But we have to think creatively about it. Otherwise, we're just not going to be able to. We have to reach these people.
Yeah, it's interesting to like, you have it's like a key part of what I think your campaign is going to be, is reaching those people that are traditionally harder to reach than walking down a block of single family homes where
Right.
there's no key.
Right, totally. And I think I also think it's also beyond door knocking too. So
Yeah.
obviously we're going to do phone calling, but we're also going to have different community type conversations and events, and like let's also talk to people where they gather, right? Like where are people gathering in Ward 7? Where are the places that people go to? Where are the businesses? Where are the grocery stores? Those types of things. They're not all going to be Ward 7 residents, of course, but I have a feeling that people will go to places that are nearby them, and so maybe a lot of them will be.
And what I'm noticing that's new in 2021 that I haven't really seen much of before in a city election is text push polls. Are you doing any text push polls?
We're not
Have you
doing
gotten any of those?
polls. I have gotten. I don't know. Remember if I've gotten one, or if I've called, or if someone called me with a poll, like asking me a question. But I just got a text today. I think from Faith in Minnesota, asking if I supported the public safety charter amendment. So I did get that. But we've sent a small number of texts, but we have not sent a lot.
Oh, that was a joke about the push polls on the public safety charter amendment. Pine, you're supposed to back me up by laughing so that the guest knows this.
My bad. I'm sorry. There it is.
The guest will be confused about my jokes if we don't have a laugh track. Okay, that's enough. That's enough.
It's a good one.
Nikkor is not coming back on this podcast. So what are the stakes? You're talking about a lot of voters who might not vote, may never have voted in a city election before, may not know, like, why should I care about city council? Why does it matter if Lisa Goodman remains on the city council as opposed to putting Nikkor on the city council? Like, what is different in Ward 7 on the ground in the neighborhood if Nikkor is the council member and not Lisa Goodman?
I think there are a number of things in terms of like what are the stakes. Like I think that people have lived through this last year and have seen that what we have right now is not working. What we have in terms of our public safety system is not working. What we have in terms of like how we treat our people and our economy and things like that is not working. And how we view housing is not working. And so like people are seeing that on the street. People are seeing that with their own eyes. People are engaging in these things, and people are turning out. This, after George Floyd was murdered, I remember I was biking around the city, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have never seen, and I've been an organizer for like 10 years in the Twin Cities, and I just like said to myself, I was like, I have never seen this level of engagement in this city my entire career. people who are just like going out, like group of like 3 friends who are like holding a sign on the street, like things like that. Like people are going out of their way, like making an effort to go out to engage in politics, to like engage in like making change. And even though, like holding a sign maybe doesn't like do that much, but like people like they're like going out and doing stuff because they feel like they have to do something. You know what I mean? And so that is the energy that exists in our city this past year, that has existed this past year. And so like we have to harness that energy into the electoral process, into people seeing that like what they want to see in terms of their vision for public safety, for example, like that can happen if we have people in the city council who are going to vote for those things. And people think that the Minneapolis City Council, we have a progressive, like we can do a lot of progressive things, but I actually don't think we have a progressive majority in Minneapolis City Council. And so part of like what needs to happen is we need to make sure we have that majority. And if I was elected, like there would be a flip. There would be one extra seat to the progressive majority in Minneapolis. And it's very clear that the last 2 decades has led us to this moment, right? The last 2 decades and beyond has led us to this. The policies of the last 2 decades have led us to this moment. And so like if we don't want to continue on with what we've been doing, like we have to vote for change.
And so that's a good segue to talking about public safety. And so when I think about 2021 versus 2017, 2017 was the Trump aftermath election in Minneapolis. And I think that pushed the city council to the left. And the last year of protests after George Floyd's murder, it really became a nationwide movement, but it's centered here in Minneapolis. It could be that influences the outcome this year in 2021, but there's also a backlash to the backlash in terms of the constant concern about real or perceived safety issues.
Yeah.
We've got crime on the rise locally and nationwide. And there's going to be a contingent of voters who are skeptical of public safety changes, who will buy the argument that the failure is about a lack of police and not necessarily a failure in total, like not only in addition to the abuse by MPD and the generations of racism, killings by police against Black people, people of color. How do you talk to people who are skeptical? Have you found a good way to talk with a skeptical audience on this public safety charter amendment, creating a Department of Public Safety, doing things a different way?
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of thoughts about this. Number one, I think that like at the end of the day, and it's very clear in the conversations that I've been having, at the end of the day, like almost everyone that I've talked to believes that we need to do something about the police. Like they believe that like, yes, we need to make some changes and reforms to the police. Like almost everyone that I talk to believes in that. And like almost everyone that I talk to thinks that we need to do something about crime and violence as well. And so both narratives are existing at the same time. And so I think people in the middle are really struggling with that tension right now of like, how do we both like change the way we do policing and at the same time like address the crime and violence in our city. So I just want to like lay that out there in terms of like that's sort of like I think it's sort of like the lay of the land right now in terms of like how people are thinking. At least a lot of the people that I've talked to so far, I think, have been thinking. And I'll say that a number of things. Number one, in terms of crime and violence, I think that in terms of adding more police officers to address that, I think that the data shows that doesn't help. So from 2014 to 2020, before the pandemic, we spent a record amount of money on the police every single year, increasing the funds to the police department every single year. And even then, like there was still there was still crime, but it didn't happen potentially in neighborhoods where people could see it. It happened in poorer neighborhoods. It happened in neighborhoods where there were predominantly people of color or black, and so then people didn't care as much, but the crime was still happening. People were still getting shot, but it just people didn't care because it was happening to black and brown people, right? And so I just want to name the fact that police did not stop crime from happening in some of these areas. What I believe stops crime and violence is actual real investments into neighborhoods, actual real investments into communities, and we can talk a little bit more about that later if we want to. And then the other thing I'll say about the charter amendment is that a lot of people, even Lisa Goodman supporters, support the charter amendment. When I talk to them about what it means, when we talk about what it would do, a lot of people support it, and so I think it's not some super wild and radical idea to create a new Department of Public Safety that has different aspects of public safety in that department that would still include the police, but it would also include other things like potentially violence prevention, homelessness outreach, unarmed responders, all those those types of things, and to have it be more coordinated and to have the departments communicating with each other and to have a central person in charge. I think those are all important and would allow for a more effective public safety approach for our city, and it allows us as residents to think about public safety beyond just policing, because unfortunately in the past 100 plus years, 150 years of the Minneapolis Police Department, our only approach has been police, and that's not our only approach to public safety has been police, and that's not what I think actually keeps people safe. I think the police can play a role, but there are so many other things that are actually about public safety.
And when you think about the public safety, when I think about it, the Public Safety Charter Amendment, it could potentially be very status quo. It is not the change in itself. It is about who we elect this November to fill out those details, because the Department of Public Safety is a container for we're still going to have police if no matter who we elect to the city council next year.
It could be just it could just be a renaming of the police if we have that. Could be something that happens, right? It could be let's create a new Department of Public Safety and we're only going to have the police as a part of that, right? That's right,
and the chief will be in charge.
Exactly. So that's why it's so important to have a majority on the council that would vote for change.
Another point I should make is that you mentioned how well-funded MPD has been over the years, and it was that very well-funded police department that totally collapsed over the last year. It wasn't dismantled by the city council.
Absolutely.
They just killed a guy and disintegrated in the aftermath, in addition to shooting people in the head with rubber bullets at protests, spraying people indiscriminately.
And, just watching people run up and down my block setting stuff on fire while they just stood there.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
So it was that very well-funded police department that totally failed.
Exactly.
I'd like to have it replaced with something that can actually, be effective. That's how I hope that argument works with people who are on the fence about it, because we have to fix the problem.
I hope so too. And like I said, during the caucus and convention process, I was talking to people who were Lisa supporters, and we were talking about public safety and specifically about the amendment. And there were a number of people, a lot of people who were supportive of it. And I think a number of them maybe haven't heard about it yet. They would be like, oh, I would have to learn more about what that means. But when I described it, they were like, yeah, I could get behind that. That's something that I would support. It makes sense. It's reasonable. It's not anything that's out of the box in that. It's not that out of the box, although it is in a way, because we've just never done that before.
It is a thing that kind of organizes a lot of popular things into one department. A lot of people support mental health responders, support not sending police to nonviolent issues.
Right.
But it's been framed, I think, especially in local media, TV news, as kind of the abolish the police charter
Yeah.
amendment, which it's not.
Right. And that's unfortunate.
Another charter amendment, the strong mayor proposal, something I've heard from a council candidate in a different ward talking to these middle of the road skeptical types about the public safety charter amendment. She can talk them into the idea of the public safety charter amendment, which, hey, victory there. But they've grown attached to the idea of the strong mayor charter amendment,
Yeah.
which is totally nonsensical. Doesn't make any sense as a response to the public safety problems of last year, because the mayor is already as strong as he could be, has power over the police. So
Right.
are you getting feedback on the strong mayor charter amendment? Is that on people's radar in Ward 7?
It's on some people's radar, but I wouldn't say it's on I don't get as many questions about that as I do about some of this other stuff that I brought up. But it is on people's minds. And I think that I would be open to having some conversations about what that structure looks like, but generally I don't. What was proposed by the charter amendment was, to me, just like way out of bounds of like it feels like, and if after reading it, that there was actual no checks to the mayoral power that the council can give, and so that's like, I can't remember the exact phrasing of the language in some of those parts, but it said something like that the council cannot like override or anything like, or usurp the mayor's decision on something. It's just like, that's what checks and balances are, right? That's like how we govern, and so like that to me is just like, it's way out of line.
Pine, do you have thoughts about strong mayor or public safety or really any issue under the sun? Are things like occurring to you as we have this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you all have been saying. Strong mayor thing is just weird.
Yeah.
I like, a nightmare scenario that occurs to me is like some sort of situation where where we have both of these two amendments pass. Like, what does that
Yeah.
even mean?
That'd
I don't
be
even
so weird.
know. It would just be like, oh, I hope that ever happens, because like I would not want to have to be anywhere near
That would
like
be so weird.
anything with that. It wouldn't make any sense. We live in a contradiction city.
Yeah.
Yeah. My big prediction for the outcome this year is that we reelect Mayor Fry. We elect a progressive or even more progressive city council at the same time. We pass the public safety charter amendment and we pass the strong mayor charter amendment, and nobody knows what any of that is supposed to mean. And so we're kind of stuck with where we are. So I'm encouraging people to like pick a side. Choose where you are on these issues, because it's all related, and we should like decide what direction we want to go as a city.
Yeah.
Let's make a decision.
Voters are confusing sometimes. Very conflicted, very confusing. They like to, they like to split their vote sometimes. They like to. Some of them are very, progressive, but then they like the fact that there's more moderate people on the council. Things like that are just like kind of weird and interesting. I guess not weird. It's just interesting.
Pine, do you have a transportation question?
How many bikes do you have, and what kind are they?
I have one bike. I have a Trek that I bought in 2014. It is lime green, which I really like because it's very unique. But I was very sad because I went to Duluth last year and we put the bike on the bike rack incorrectly, and it fell off on the highway on 35. We were very lucky that it did not fall completely off, and it dragged, and so we were able to get off the highway and the bike was still connected to the car, but it was dragging, and so I was very sad that my bike was ruined, and so my uncle likes to fix bikes, and so I gave it to my uncle, and he put some new parts on it, and so yeah, I have a newish bike now, but it's still obviously the same bike.
That's awesome. I'm glad.
Yes.
I have another transportation question for you. the question that I have for you is about the Hennepin Avenue reconstruction. Um, what are your thoughts on the proposals for that or around that?
Yeah, I think that generally more bike lanes and more bus lanes and more walkability is good for our city. It's good for our neighborhoods and it's good for our businesses. Despite what people will say about that, like more foot traffic is probably good for your business that is on the street. Like that's generally what I think, and that's also what the research shows. And so yeah, I would I am supportive of that of extending the bike lane or adding the bike lane and the bus lane and allowing people to more opportunity to walk, more access to walk.
Well, that's good. I'm reassured by that because
Me too.
that's one of those this is the stakes this year questions. Like Lisa Goodman has often been a roadblock for changes. I know Third Ave downtown, there was a
Yeah,
wonderful 4-3 conversion design for
right,
Third Avenue that didn't happen because of Lisa Goodman. It would have
right.
resulted in a greener, safer street
Hmm.
with more, room for vegetation and
Hmm.
planter protected
Hmm.
bike lanes.
So
So
one thing maybe y'all can help me answer this question about the Henneman redesign is one thing that I've heard people say, and I'm not sure exactly how best to respond yet, but is about the traffic on Hennepin, and Hennepin Avenue traffic is already bad. Um, what if we're narrowing it down to one lane, what will that do to traffic on Hennepin?
So they're going to add the left turn lanes in a lot of places,
Okay.
and they're going to try to consolidate some curb cuts in and out of businesses. But adding that turn lane is key because
Yeah,
a
I think
lot of
that is key.
the traffic backups that you see on
Yeah.
Hennepin are people trying to turn left, and
Right.
cars that have no interest in turning left get
Yeah.
stuck behind them. So in a lot of cases, adding that turn lane and going from 4 to 3 lanes actually makes traffic flow better. So
My take is that I simply do not care about people in car having car problems.
that's not a secret plan to win Ward 7, Pine.
I'm sorry, that's not my secret plan to win anything. This is my personally held opinion. Is that if I'm on a bike, I can't go anywhere on Hennepin, so it's closed completely to me, right?
Yeah.
Like I have to go walk my bike on Hennepin, and
But
walking your bike is not fun.
people
So I
still
just
do
can't get anywhere.
bike. People still bike Hennepin Avenue in its current state, and it's
Not
dangerous for
me.
them, and we should make it safer for those people.
Yeah, I was biking Lindale Avenue a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh, how did that go?
Yeah,
I've done it for
it
like
was
2 blocks
fine.
as well myself. Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, for a block, you can kind of okay, I'm gonna bike as
Yeah.
fast as I can for a block, so these
Yeah.
cars don't catch up to me. And I can immediately veer off and
Yeah.
get away.
Well, the interesting thing about that is I spent some time in Asia, and in China, the traffic is really really wild, but they also have a lot of bikers, and everyone's just biking and driving together. And it is dangerous, but there are a lot of people, and so you kind of get used to it in a way. And the other thing that's kind of cool about China is they have bikes everywhere that people can rent. They're just everywhere, and it's very cheap and affordable to rent a bike. They're just sitting there, and you can just it's like 2 kwai, which is one kwai is seven kwai is $1. So it's very cheap.
That is
I
cheap.
imagine the traffic is maybe slower. Maybe it's more chaotic, but also slower.
Maybe,
Is
yeah.
that
Hmm.
true?
Maybe it's a little slower. It is more chaotic though, for sure.
If you confuse drivers, they will often pay more attention. So maybe it's just so
Yeah.
chaotic and confusing
True.
that drivers
True.
are not
They will pay.
texting
Yes,
constantly.
exactly. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, I have used the tactic of sort of looking like I'm not paying attention on my bike to get the
So they would
drivers
pay more
to calm
attention.
down a little bit.
Oh, yeah. You have to dress like a total jackass to be safe on a bike. It's I also find being on a nice ride bike may be protective because
Mhm.
drivers will assume I'm not from around here. Nice ride is my full-time bike, so Okay, let's talk about rent control. Rent control
Yeah.
charter amendment. You are in support, right?
I am.
And so explain why you think this is good for Minneapolis passing this rent control charter amendment.
So a few things. Number one, like we are seeing a lot of places get bought by corporations or big developers or things like that, and they'll do some small renovations to the units, and then they'll increase the rent by hundreds of dollars. And this is happening all over our city, including here in Ward 7, including in Lauren Park and Stevens Square. It's like it's happening everywhere. And so like rent stabilization, in my perspective, is a band-aid to that. It's not the end all be all how we solve affordable housing. It's like a band-aid to those things. And I think that we need a band-aid, and we need to change how we do housing in our city. But like that is one small piece of the puzzle for us to stop the bleeding of like people getting kicked out of their homes, people getting displaced because they can't afford to live there anymore.
Yeah,
And of course,
one of the
this
things-
this I was just gonna say, of course, this amendment isn't actually going to enact rent control. It's just going to allow for that conversation to happen.
Yeah, it creates a process for
Yeah.
a future policy to happen.
Right.
And one of the things that makes that phenomenon of buying up older housing, refurbishing it, adding some new appliances, and raising the rent hundreds of dollars is simply the housing shortage in Minneapolis. And there's a balancing act between kind of renter protections, rent control, anti-displacement measures, and also building enough housing to accommodate all the people who live in Minneapolis and want to live in Minneapolis. It's a great place to live. It's why I live here. I think it's a good thing that a lot of people want to live here, but how do you balance the need for, I mean, there's some anti-development sentiment out there that acts as though, development is part of the problem. I see it as one of the solutions, building more housing, building a lot more housing. So how do you balance all of those things to make sure Minneapolis stays affordable and a great place to live?
For sure. Yeah, I think that I agree. I think we need more housing in our city generally. I think we need more housing. And I think that like in my perspective, I think it's really important to think about like what type of housing that we're building. Because like if you look at the vacancy rates in Minneapolis, you will see that there are lots of vacancies for housing over 50% of area median income. The vacancy rates are high. But it starts to get low, especially after you get to 30% of area median income. It's at zero. And so it's like very clear, right? The type of housing we need to invest our money in is like deeply affordable housing. That is the type of that is the type of housing we need to invest our money in. And so that's what I'm really focused on, is like helping to figure out how we do that, is to build more deeply affordable housing in our city. Because I think, the rest of the stuff is going to get built. And so like the way that we want to spend our dollars is on deeply affordable housing for people, so that people at the lowest levels can afford to live in Minneapolis.
And so have you been paying attention to the SRO, the single room occupancy debate at all?
I am familiar with SROs. I don't exactly. Maybe you can say a little bit more about what you mean by the debate.
Yeah. So there's been some recent developments, and it's good for me to be able to explain this to people who are listening. SROs are a type of housing, often like in a
Right.
normal looking house with
Right.
private rooms and shared kitchen and bathroom facilities. Used to be a very common housing type, was made illegal decades ago. And that I would say has caused problems, has eliminated a very affordable type of housing in the city. And so in the 2040 plan, which was adopted a couple of years ago, it called for removing barriers to that type of housing in the zoning code. And so there's a proposal at the city council right now to legalize it in a very limited way, not as expansive as I would have hoped for, but limiting it to nonprofits and government entities to operate them, which I think is a pretty big restriction. Also limiting it to higher density parts of the city. So very low, formerly single family areas would be exempted from SRO legalization. That's the broad outline of what's happening.
Yes.
So the city council is now considering a very restricted version of SRO legalization. So just your thoughts generally on
Yeah.
SROs and how
Yeah.
you would approach what the city council has before it right now in terms of government entities, only limiting it to government entities and nonprofits only.
Can you say a little bit more about why they want that restriction, or why
So
people? What
the
is their perspective on like why they want that?
So the argument from the planner who has talked to policymakers, council members, was that they want to do a slow rollout and potentially expand it later, thinking that an early backlash to the policy could just kill it once and for all, like they'd enact it. You'd have bad results, and then they'd just undo the policy and never pursue it further. And the argument from proponents is we've got a homelessness crisis. We went through a year of encampments. We still have encampments. People are homeless right now. They don't need a slow rollout of legalizing this very affordable type of housing.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think so. I would support SROs, and I think that the restriction is really restrictive because it's already so hard for nonprofits and government to find money for housing that, like how many units are you even going to build? Like it's already so hard to find money for that. And so I would like to see something that would be less restrictive, and to be able to build SROs all over the city, and also that would also allow for-profit developers to build them as well. I think that to me that seems reasonable.
Throwing my 2 cents on this SRO's business.
Sure.
I feel like it's a great. I'm also disappointed that they're restricting them so much. It feels like it would be a great landing spot for somebody who was maybe, coming here from, a coast or, someplace where it's rapidly becoming not really fit for humans to live anymore. It seems like an SR would be a great spot to, move to the city, to get your feet on the ground.
Right.
And then, maybe you look for a bigger place after that, but you can, land there and make some connections and then figure out what neighborhood you want to live in after that. And it's just really disappointing to have it be so limited to, people that are solving current homelessness problems and not allowing, people who aren't quite homeless.
Yeah,
that was a reference.
Migrants.
You were referencing California, I think, with your
uninhabitable. Yeah. You can't afford to live there by yourself. So
do we have an idea of how much, if there was a new SRO complex that was built, how much a 1-bedroom unit or 1-bedroom would cost in that?
I know that there are cities that do it. I know Seattle was doing something and they were calling them apartments, but I think they went back and made them illegal a couple of years ago. So maybe that's an argument for the backlash ruining the good thing. I don't know. We'll have to look more into that. There are other cities that do it though. And there are examples obviously from other countries too.
Right. Totally.
So, changing topics because we don't have the answer for you. Sorry, Nick.
It's okay. I can do my research.
I was looking at your website and I was looking at your blog posts, and one of the posts that I saw that you wrote was about the St. Paul pilot for UBI, Universal Basic Income, and I noticed. I haven't done a whole lot of reading on it myself, but it seems like we're starting to do a similar pilot here in Minneapolis. I wanted to hear. You probably know way more about these things than I do. Would you please go off about them?
Oh, sure. I think that it's. I think we should try it. I think that we should provide it for those who are obviously the lowest income in our city. And there's already been success in St. Paul. And people have, it was a very small number, I think, in St. Paul, like 100 or some people. I can't remember. I don't remember the number. But less than 1,000. But but yeah, it allows people to get off their feet and like, or get a start in buying the things that they need and getting the type of care that they need, and they can save it and end up like using it for something else, like potentially like rent or something, stuff like that. I think it's just really important. It's really necessary right now for a lot of people who are struggling.
Definitely. Have you heard about any of the like details on the current pilot here in Minneapolis, or do we all need to go do the reading on that? Because I think it was only like last week or a couple weeks ago or something.
I just heard about it. I just heard about it maybe a couple weeks ago, and I don't think that there are a lot of details yet. They announced it, and they're saying they're using ARP funding for it, which is good. I would support that. The American Rescue Plan. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, yes, I am excited to see sort of like how they choose what, who gets it and things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. I guess I'm excited to see how that program works as well. It seems like it'd be something that's
Yeah.
kind of needed.
Right. And I also add that, at the same time, it's like not the end all be all, right? Like there are still so many things that are going to be important, and like that small amount of cash is important, but like it's, there's so much more that we need, that like wraparound services and other types of things that are also critical to helping people get on their feet.
Yeah, like you said about the housing thing, it's a Band-Aid. We
Right.
need more than that, but
Exactly.
a Band-Aid doesn't
Exactly.
hurt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the next question that I've got for us here is what has given you the drive? What has caused you to change your whole life in the direction of running for office? I assume you
That
have
is
like
a good
hobbies you'd rather
question.
be pursuing, and
What is Krista's answer to that question?
Yeah. Why would you run for BET? What a weirdo.
So she's running for BET because it's time for a change, and it's a part-time position, so it's something you can do in addition to other stuff, right? It's not that you have to put down everything else in your life to run for to be on the BET, but city council is a whole different story.
Historically, it's been a platform to be a big asshole, so that's a bonus.
My name's Carol Becker, and none of you have the balls to stop this.
But don't dodge the question, Nikkor. You were asked.
I am not dodging the question. I am not dodging the question.
Don't you have any hobbies? Don't you have any hobbies you'd rather be doing?
I no longer have any hobbies because I'm running for office now. But a few reasons. Number one, I have this last, or maybe like 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, 2019 to 2020, I spent as a Bush Fellow. I visited a lot of different cities around the country and around the world. I really saw that a lot of the things we want in our city are possible because they're already happening. And there, like what we want for our future, like can exist, like it can be a thing. And like, we just have to like we need to dream a little bit bigger about what we want. And we need to be a little bit more bold in getting to that. It's like that's just what we need to do. And so like, I wanted to be able to talk about that and say that, like, and help inspire people to know that like what we have right now doesn't have to be what our future is. Like, and this past year has just been evidence of the fact that like things are changing drastically. Things can either get worse or they can get better, right? Like they can just get way worse, or we can work together, or we can like inspire our neighbors to come together, and we can like motivate people to action to make our city better. And like, in order for us to actually do this thing here in Minneapolis, it's like, it's not going to be me. Like, it actually is going to take all of us, you know? It's like, it's going to take all of us to be able to come together to create these solutions, because I don't have all the answers. The answers are going to have to come from us. And so I want to be able to like provide a platform and a space for people to be able to have those conversations, to be able to dream bigger about what we can accomplish, to be able to actually envision like, what does a safe community look like to you? Like, I think when we think about that, like, the answer is not policing. The answer is, oh, I have housing, I have food to eat. Like, those are the things that, like, when I think about, say, like that's what it is. And so, like, let's re-envision, let's think differently about these things, and really like build a Minneapolis that works and belongs to all of us, where where all of us have what we need to thrive. And so I'm running for office because like I want to do that thing. And like, I feel like what we have right now in terms of our current council member is a barrier to that. Like, I don't see a champion for all of these different issues. And so like, that's why I'm running for office. I know, like, I knew getting into this that this was going to be one, if not the toughest race in the city of Minneapolis. Like, I knew that. And I know that like the people of Ward 7, I know that there is absolutely a path. 65% of people in Ward 7 are renters, of households are renters. And 30% of people in households in Ward 7 make under $30,000 a year. There are people who are extremely will be extremely motivated and connected to like the things that we're talking about, and like, it's time for someone who actually represents everyone in the ward. Like, that is something that's important. That's something that I want to see in my elected representation, and I hadn't seen that, so that's why I decided to run. Even though it is a really tough year, even though I no longer have any hobbies.
Right. So that was a good way to close the show, which is why, and a good rousing answer. But I'm going to ask an additional question, because I just keep this.
Okay, great.
Let's keep it going.
Keep going. Let's do it.
I ask one question too many. That's how I do this.
Okay.
So you talked about traveling around the world. Did you say the world? And going to different cities.
Not like all around. I spent about almost a year in Asia. I spent a year visiting cities around the United States, and then I spent a year in Asia.
Okay, so during your travels, what's an idea that you think is totally possible to implement in Minneapolis, but we're just nobody's doing it? We could do it. It wouldn't take very much effort. Wouldn't take very, very long to do it. What's an easy to implement idea that somebody else is doing and we're just not thinking about it?
Well, some of these things I think are a little difficult, but something that I think is really easy. Something that's really easy is street food in Minneapolis, and right now we only allow hot dogs to be sold on the street in terms of cooked food. And so like, if we opened the streets and allowed for street food, number one is a very easy way for people to open their own small business and allows people to get in, and like, there's very low capital that that it takes to open a cart or whatever. Number two, it brings more life to our streets. That is something that I think many of us talk about frequently in Minneapolis, is how dead our streets are. And so, yes, it brings life to the streets. It also brings life to the businesses around the streets. And number three, we just get more good food. Like, we need more better food options from local people. This is a way for our local people to be able to like cook the things that they like to cook, and like, let's eat that stuff. After bar closed, people are running around everywhere looking for a place to eat. No one is there. This is a wasted opportunity for people to make money.
Okay, I'm glad I asked this question.
I also feel this way about like light rail stops. There's no food carts. It's a light rail stop.
Totally.
So I'm like, I'm waiting.
Totally.
I'm standing around here doing nothing.
Absolutely.
I got 10 minutes because I just missed the fucking train.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on.
For sure. Exactly. And this is like low hanging fruit, right? Like this is like something that could be easily done. So let's let people, let's let people open their own food carts and like have some great food on our streets.
Okay. I've got an idea. I've got an idea for a slogan for your yard sign, because I know yard sign season is coming up.
Yeah.
Nikkor, let's eat that stuff. Because that was something you just said.
This is a way for our local people to be able to like cook the things that they like to cook, and like let's eat that stuff.
How do you feel?
Great. We will think about it.
Okay, I'm glad I asked that question. I'm glad you had an answer for that.
What do you guys think about that idea?
I like the idea. I think that's yes. We're in support. You've earned a double endorsement from Which I've already endorsed you. You've earned the double endorsement based on let's eat that stuff. I'm pro eating.
Let's eat that stuff. Yes.
Let's eat that stuff.
Yes.
Okay. The real final question is going to be about the guitar. Do you have the guitar? Are you willing to play the guitar?
I have it.
Guitar features.
I have it in my living space, and it's not tuned, but I can.
Oh. Well, if you're not ashamed to play an untuned guitar.
Do you want me to play it live? Is that I did a video for all of my I did a video for all of my donors, and I sent them a special video, so I can send it to you if you want to see it.
I mean, if you want to keep it special, we'll let you keep it special.
I can also. Do you want me to go grab my guitar? I just don't think that this mic is going to pick it up. It might, but I don't know if it will.
We can try. Your sound is very overwhelming, so it will probably pick it up.
Go.
How overwhelming is my sound?
It's going to level out. We're going to level out your sound in post. So you'll be fine.
Okay.
Go get it.
I'll be right back. Whew, I almost missed the chair. First, I need to tune my guitar, so...
Okay, tune it up.
And I can't hear you, so if you're talking, I can't hear you right now because I don't have my headphones on. Here it is.
Tuning that.
All right, this is a good chance to play my Lisa Goodman audio.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
I got nothing to do today.
Yeah. I can sit here and watch a guy tune his guitar.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Lisa Goodman can't do this.
Can you hear the guitar?
Yay. Very good.
Thank you.
How was that?
Thank you.
I was
That's
a little
good.
rusty. Put me on the spot, but
No,
hopefully
that
it was
sounded-
good.
It sounded good.
Beautiful.
I think we may be using your laptop mic because you're very clear. I mean,
Oh,
you
really?
have everything.
It's the headphones because I don't have a laptop. I'm using my desktop.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting.
That is a
Wow,
good
that mic
headset
just
mic. Wow.
Picks up everything.
It's a gamer headset.
Oh, do you play video games?
I used to, but I don't have time to play anymore.
Well, of course, you're running for city council. What did you used to play?
Yeah. I used to play. So I've been playing video games since I was like in middle school. So I some of the first games that I played were like Warcraft 3 and like Age of Empires, like real time strategy games. I also played like Counter-Strike, and so recently I was playing like StarCraft 2 or like Overwatch, Valorant, things like that. Oh, Star Wars! I'm also a big Star Wars fan.
Who do you main in Overwatch?
Oh, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name right now.
Widowmaker.
No, not Widowmaker. Well, so I would play. What is the gorilla's name? Why can't I remember his name anymore?
Oh, Winston.
I would play Winston, and then I would also play the Korean girl in the thing.
Diva. So
Diva,
you were a
yes,
tank main.
Winston
I
and
can
Diva.
respect that.
Yeah,
I can respect.
I'm sorry, it's been a long time since I played Overwatch, like a very long time.
Yeah.
like 4 or 5
awesome.
years now. But I was gonna say I'm also a big Star Wars fan, so I play Star Wars games too.
Okay, so is your campaign slogan "Here comes the sun" or "Let's eat that stuff"?
If
you had to choose.
Let's eat that stuff for sure.
Okay, that's a good way to end it. Nikkor, thank you for spending so much time with us.
Yeah, it's been
during
fun.
your run for
Do you guys ever have like candidates back on?
I mean, it's a new podcast, so it's possible we will have candidates back on. I know the election year is going to heat up, so we can definitely have you back if you want to spend another hour with us,
longer than an hour.
Less. Yeah, it has been longer than an hour. You've been counting the seconds. But thank you, Nikkor. Yeah. Thank you, Nikkor, and thank you, co-host Pine.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.
And that's the end of the show.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.